explique. Mike ne parle pas le français. Bah, on va apprendre. C'est dans ce KPI.
L'année prochaine.
Okay. D'abord, thank you for coming. Comme vous savez, as you know, we just carried out a meeting with the members. I think it is our fiduciary duty to explain to the members where we're going, what the budget changes are proposing, and how will it affect the club. But the purpose of the meeting was really threefold. One, as you may know, we carried out a while back, we initiated an economic impact assessment. Economic impact assessment, which is our own EIA, which was carried out by Ernst & Young, and I stress on the word independent there. B, the legal aspects affecting us, which are coming out of the budget proposition. It's not law yet, it's the budget proposition. There I would ask you to refer to Yaya for those questions. Unfortunately you won't be here. There's quite a few that affects the constitution, we think. We may challenge, but that's not law yet, so we'll wait and see for it to be law. And last but not least, the financial implication to the club should be, of course, letting operators cease to operate. By no way, I say this, by no way was this a political meeting. It was a meeting rather where we administrators, we have a fiduciary duty. It's as if Rogers is going, something's happening to the balance sheet, they have to give a signal in terms of earnings. This was our meeting, was really to announce what we feel the changes will affect the bottom line of our club. We took that oath at the last AGM. Let's start with the EIA. This is all a scoop for you, it's fresh off the press. As I said earlier on, this was done independently by Ernst & Young, and I stress on the word independent. The findings are as follows. If you can put it up, Mike. It's up there. There you go. The racing industry in 2018 contributed to 6.2 billion in terms of output to the country. Translated, it was 1.7% of GDP. The employment, 2,170 jobs, which contributed 0.4%. When we say 2,170 jobs, you must take this into consideration. We're not counting other businesses where we could not do the study, Aluda, etc. But these are the part-time jobs translated into 600. These are economic jobs. Labor income for the country was 2 billion rupees. The government revenue, we've always disputed this. Is it 600? Is it 650? Is it 670? Ernst & Young did count for all the levies and taxes paid by the operators and us, license fees and everything else. 679 million that goes into the pocket of the government. That is your scoop of the night. Nobody is saying this, not one member of the press, but you will all see it. I think it's an important number. It is really what is at stake. And a big thanks to the people who put this together. Now this study cost a lot of money, as you can appreciate, and it was co-funded by AESR, true partners of the industry. We thank them very much for their support. So it is an industry, if you look at it with hindsight, it's been doing well. And we believe it can do even better if we are given the scope to do better. We just spent time in there displaying worldwide information about how other operators around the world are doing it, the diversification processes of their various racetracks, not just horse racing. Hong Kong is moving to football and other betting facilities. Australia is doing the same, Mike, and as is South Africa. Here, we're just simply not allowed. It's also unfortunate that we have two tote operators in Mauritius and one fixed odd tote, but yet we are not allowed to do a commingling tour, which is unfortunate. We have applied for it and been turned down. So the point I'm making is that we can do more, and we should be allowed to do more, because given these figures that you've just seen, 1.7% contribution to GDP is enormous for this industry. As I said, for the legal aspects, there are a few damning legal aspects coming out of this budget that should worry every licensee of the turf club, and these have been highlighted to the members already. For our bottom line impact, Mike will walk you through just now the potential reduction of our bottom line should the off-course bookmakers stop operating as proposed in the budget. Now, just for your information, we had already planned to do this meeting had they lost their case in the Supreme Court. The fact that they won it, we thought we were out of the woods. But now we see that the name off-course bookmakers have been taken out of the dictionary in the budget speech, which means as of August 15th, they will not be able to operate anymore. That will have a direct impact on our bottom line. The budget that the AGM and the members had approved at the last AGM, we were well on track to achieve that. It was business as usual. Well on track. No doubt about that. Now all of a sudden this comes, and we are being put in a backward situation. We're not sitting idle. We're not sitting idle. Like I said, this meeting was planned already before. And already we saw it coming. We've taken a lot of initiatives. We won't go through it with each one of them with you. We've taken a lot of initiative to reduce our cost base, what I would really call financial discipline in the club, which Mike is doing, enhancement of revenue outside with forward thinking. Today itself, Mike will tell you, we signed another contract with a pool operator in the UK. Externalization of our horse racing industry is where we need to go, but then also we need to have the ability to have a community pool together with the tote operators in Mauritius, so we can sell it outside and we can get that benefit from it. So that in a nutshell, I would say, is a scoop of the night. You've seen the performance of the industry, and I mean the industry in terms of national contribution. You heard legal aspect from Yaya, you will ask for some more details, I'm sure. I will leave Mike now to present to you the impact of the off-course bookmakers not being allowed to operate going forward. Okay, from my side also, thank you very much for taking the time to come out so late at night. I'm going to just, as Kamal said, I'm just going to take you through what the budget speech, or the effect that the budget speech had on the Mauritius Turf Club. If we look at the first slide, what that tells you is that 42% of the income of the Mauritius Turf Club comes from bookmakers. A total of 42%. You'll see there that tote contributes 28.4%, and I won't go through all the rest, but those are the two big ones, and combined that tells you that about 71% of all the revenue coming to the Mauritius Turf Club comes from betting. Okay? Now, I'm going to slice out, and I want to look specifically at fixed odds bets now, which as you can see from that is by far the biggest portion of our income. So I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to show you the next slide, which says that if you look in 2018, and 2019 is no different, in 2018, if you look on the left, that figure in the yellow column, that was the turnover done in millions here in the grandstand, you know, down the bottom here. If the figure in the middle in yellow was the turnover done across the road at La Plaine. Okay? And the figure on the right hand side is the turnover done by the off-course bookmakers. So 904 million rupees in turnover was done by the off-course bookmakers.
or 25% of the total turnover done by bookmakers in this country, legal bookmakers in this country, was done off course. And it's that 25% that I'm focusing on today. Okay? So effectively 25% of 41%. That's what we're looking at right now. Now, in our budget for this year, 2019, we budgeted to do 878 million rupees in off-course bookmaker turnover. Okay? So that was what we were expecting to generate from off-course bookmakers. We, by law, are entitled to 4.5% of that in income. We are going to lose 878 million rupees worth of turnover. At 4.5%, we are going to lose 39,500,000 rupees. So by just taking the off-course bookmakers out of the equation, we are going to lose that figure, 39 million odd rupees in turnover. Now you guys will recall that for the first 7 race meetings this year, we didn't have off-course bookmakers for those 7 meetings. So we were able to get a very good picture of what was going to happen if they ever reinstated it. We knew exactly what happened in those 7 race meetings and what did happen in those 7 race meetings. Firstly, the bookmakers that operate here, the turnover went up quite substantially. In fact, it went up by, I think I said there, by 15%, which was fantastic. So obviously some of the people that used to punt off course came here and did their business here on the race course. So that went up by 15%. Across the way, turnovers went up by 2%, hardly, and that's that million rupees over there. And then tote turnovers went up quite substantially during those 7 race meetings. So what we did was we calculated what additional revenue we were going to get as a result of the off-course bookmakers closing down. So that's the 11 million, the 1 million, and the 11 million. And that results in a net loss on an annual basis to the Mauritius Turf Club of 16.5 million rupees. Now, because in this year, 2019, we are only going to we'll lose 23 race meetings. It's the 7 we've already lost, plus from the 15th of August till the end of the year, we're going to lose those too. So we are going to lose 23 race meetings this year. So if you multiply, if you take that figure of 16.5 and you multiply it by 23 over 37, that is the amount of income that we are going to lose, net income that we're going to lose in 2019. In 2020, given the same set of circumstances, and it shouldn't be that much different, we are going to lose 16,500,000 rupees. Now those figures to us are very, very material. And the reason for the meeting today was to tell the members of this turf club that we presented a budget to you in February where we presented certain figures. We felt that we were going to get to those sort of levels. Kamal made the point quite rightly that everything was going fine. We even managed sort of to manage costs and do other things such that those 6 or 7 meetings that we lost earlier in the year didn't have such a major effect on us. It still had a negative effect, but not such a major effect. But if bookmakers stop operating from the 15th of August, it's going to have a very material effect. And what is that effect? The effect is the following. In February, the members of the Turf Club approved the budget which would have generated a profit of 6.5 million in round figures. I've just told you now that we anticipate losing 10.6 million as a result of the bookmakers closing down. So the net effect of that is obvious. At this rate, all things being equal, we're going to end up making a loss in 2019 of around about 4 million rupees. Now, any organization that makes a loss gets very worried. And we can't afford to make that sort of loss, so there's certain things we've got to do about that, and I'll deal with that shortly. But in summary, in one slide, that is what the impact is of us losing off-course bookmakers in 2019. We're even more worried, as I said earlier, because in 2020, that figure increases to, what did we say, 16.4, whatever the figure was just now. 5. So that is the financial impact on the Turf Club. Now, obviously, we now have to say, now, what are we going to do about that? Now, Kamal mentioned the point that what's happening around the world is people are diversifying. Racing countries all over the world are diversifying and starting to generate income. Not starting, they're well down the track already. Starting to generate income out of things other than horse racing. That money is then ploughed back into horse racing, but they're diversifying their income streams. And I thought I'd just give you a couple of examples. Kamal did mention some of them. But there's what happens in Hong Kong, just to give you an idea.
And by the way, this information is on the net.
Yeah, you can go to the internet and get it, but it's there. So in Hong Kong right now, only 52% of their income is generated from horse racing. You'll see there 44% is generated from football and 4% from a lottery that they conduct. So, I mean, nearly 50% of their revenue is being generated from things other than horse racing. If you look at South Africa, that's the picture in South Africa. They're doing 40% of their turnover on South African racing. In other words, betting on South African racing. They're doing 12% of their turnover betting on racing product other than South African racing.
Mauritius racing.
So they'll bring in Mauritius racing and UK and various other things. 12% of their turnover is done by betting on foreign product, as they call it. So combined, obviously, that's 52% of their turnover is on horse racing. But very interesting, only 40% is on their local racing. And then sports betting has become a huge thing around the world. So sports betting now brings in 27% of their income. And then other. There's all sorts of other things, that limited payout machines and various other things that they generate income out of. So, but the point here is just to show you this is what's happening all over the world. The next one is Australia. That'll give you an idea of what's happening in Australia. Again, horse racing is only 57% of their business. And I literally randomly chose those three, except for South Africa, because I know the facts there. But I mean, you can go to any racing country in the world, you'll get these figures. And the interesting thing, very interesting thing, is that in each case, the betting section is materially impacted by betting on foreign racing. Okay, I couldn't find the split here, I only could find it in South Africa. But I would guess that somewhere between 15 and 20% of, it's a guess, of turnover done around the world is done on foreign product as opposed to their own local product. Okay, so I hope I've made my point. Gone are the days, unfortunately, that racing countries can survive on betting on horse racing only. Also remember that those countries that I've just told you about right now, in the case of Australia and in the case of South Africa, they race every single day. Every single day. In Hong Kong, it's most probably twice a week. Yeah. So you've got it now. So it's while they bet, and what they do is they bring in racing from around the world alongside their own product, and they bet on that, of course. I'm sure I don't need to explain what. Well, let me carry on, and then I'll
So I think the point, Mike, we're not promoting that we become a big gambling house. We're just giving you the model which is making institutions that we look up to. We look up to Hong Kong, but their model has diversified greatly from horse racing to other segments of sports world.
Can you diversify?
Well, we have tried, but unfortunately today, as the scenario is, you have the two toads doing football, you have SMS Royale doing football and other racing. We have applied for licenses to the GOA before for coming in pool, it was turned down. So we're just raising, and this is our duty. Our duty as directors is to inform our members the way things are going around the world and educate horse people like yourself, press. This is the model. I'm not saying we should do it, I'm just saying this is what's happening. Of course, if you were to let me do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. But I can't. Others have taken the initiative and are doing it. Now we're doing other things with our imaging, selling it outside, that we can do. And we already signed, as I said today, with an English company that will be carrying our horse racing in how many jurisdictions, Mike?
Sure.
Sweden, about 8 or 9.
Yeah, the one we signed today was a tote contract. Yeah.
Third contract. So we're trying to get in that sphere by using our own images that we have. That's the point I want to make. Sorry, Mike.
Okay, so what I just wanted to share with you and what I've just shared with the members of the club is, so what is actually happening around the world? And what I've called it international best practice. What is happening first and foremost is racing companies own their own betting product. So they actually own the tote and they own bookmakers' licenses, and they have a control over their own income. We have no control over 71% of our income.
Should get the third then.
Sorry?
We had applied to do it. We had applied for a community license.
We would love to do it. We would love, and that's part of what I'm going to say right now. So 71% of our income is generated from the tote and from bookmakers. We have no control over the tote or the bookmakers. Everywhere else in the world, all those turnovers that you saw on the screen over there, they own the tote infrastructure, they own the bookmakers' licenses, and they have control over it themselves. We don't. Internationalizing your business. Franco's just said to you now, in Cyprus, 50% of their turnover is done on their own racing, 50% of their turnover is done on international racing. Commingling and simulcasting go together. Simulcasting means bringing international product into your country via the television screen, and commingling means our ability to bet into somebody else's pools. Now, for any of you that understand how a tote operates, you have to have reasonable sized pools in order to entice people to bet. Otherwise, they're just not going to bet.
The bigger the pool,
the more attractive it is. That's the way it works. So we quite honestly couldn't bring in, use South African racing as an example. We couldn't bring in the picture and make our own pools here locally. The pools won't be big enough to justify the pools. The dividends will be strange. So what we would do is we would bet into their pools. That's what commingling is. We'll bet into their bigger pools. What we win, we win. What we lose, we lose. That's as simple as that. But it's happening everywhere in the world. I don't know. Quite honestly, I don't know a country in the world where it's not happening. And again, go and do your homework on the internet. You can see for yourself. So internationalizing your business is just long term. In fact, I would hazard it's not even long term. It has to be done short term. Because as every day goes by, we're just falling more and more behind the rest of the world. But the problem here is we've made application for those licenses, for simulcasting and commingling licenses. We've been denied. Our license has been denied. So there's nothing we can do other than try again. And believe me, we'll be trying again. Sweating our assets. That's what this is the buzzword. What does that mean? Sweating the assets means making use of the assets that you've got more regularly. Now, from a Mauritius Turf Club point of view, it's hard to believe, I know, but we generate income 37 days a year. 37 out of 365 days a year we generate income. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out that that doesn't make sense. In other words, we're generating income just about 1 out of every 10 days in the year. Now, that might have worked in 1850, it might have worked in 1950, but I'm afraid, guys, it doesn't work in 2019. It just doesn't work in 2019. And this is the challenge that we are faced with. We have to educate those people who make decisions that allow us to do these sort of things. And this is where we need your support, and we need it badly. You know, you can have a go at us about objections and all the normal stuff on a race day, but when it comes to the business side of horse racing, I think there'll be very few people that actually disagree on what needs to be done from a business side, like this.
Especially when you see the figures in Ernst & Young study. 37 days of activity, 1.7% GDP contribution.
Should go out. Should go out from here.
Go out from where?
Up here. So another place to go on.
Well,
How do we do that?
You need money.
exactly.
No.
How do we get the money? Why do you think Hong Kong does so well? You get money from football and everything else, they plow back. Now, I must say, given these hardships, don't forget, we give 58 million rupees in terms of subsidy to the stables. We pay 101 million rupees in terms of stakes money. We will fight as much as we can not to lower these figures. This is our promise to the members and the industry. We're all in one boat. They need more stakes money, and I can't give it to them. Why we held this meeting today as well, is a lot of them now are going to fly off to South Africa in July to buy horses. They have to know where we're going, how much we get in stake. This is important for us to let them know. Otherwise, they can accuse us of not fulfilling our fiduciary duties.
Yeah. But we are going to write about it. Okay. But what power have we got?
You know, I think Mike said the right word. I think a lot of these decisions are taken by powers to be or powers who are there without understanding the ramifications it has in the industry. I don't think horse racing was ever viewed as an industry. I think today it is an industry. Yeah, it was viewed as an MTC, an antiquated clubhouse that just sit there and did the programs and everything happens. But today we professionalize it in terms of bringing Mike and Benoit and helping to make sure that people are aware that this is an industry. This industry in this country that is contributing positively into the economy. That's all I'm saying. So before you take a decision like that, do consider the impact of that industry in terms of the economy. At the end of the day, it is the last sport event that we have in this country. Football is dead. You're going to see, you get Jean Paul, no. Huh? I don't go to football games. I remember when I was young, I was in Kira, people started George Sang, the cadets going, I don't know, 5 brigade, Doudou, Saucier dans les buts, etc. The magnifique finish. This is the event that happens. Now, we only allowed to do. Now, Mike, I'm not going to let you get into all the details. We're doing a lot of things, guys.
No, I'm not going to get into it.
Okay? What will save the shortcomings of the off-course? Listen, I'm not here to discuss whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying this is the impact on my.
Can you fight against the budget proposition?
Well, I can't fight. It's whatever will be law will be law. I think the fight is with the off-course operators to fight the whole battle. I think they're starting. All my duty. And again, this is not a political meeting, not a political press conference, it's about the facts. What we can do to circumvent that 4 million loss right away, tomorrow, we get 9 races going forward. That's what I said early on. We know what to do to make it. But that's a short-term solution. The bigger long-term solution is what Mike's talking about. the explanatory, that growth, the growth outside the horse breed. How do we do that?
I'm going to stick my neck out here, but my firm view is if we were permitted to do half of those things, which everybody around the world is doing, that 1.7% of GDP that we were talking about earlier could be 2.5 within 3 to 5 years.
There you go. And I totally agree with this. We've done the math. We sit there and we know it. We know, but it just allows let us do what we know best.
The converse is the real worry. That if we're not allowed to do any of those things, in 3 to 5 years, that 1.7 might be 1.5.
Or 1.2.
That's the worry.
And who loses out? I'll let you make that call. Yes.
No, we're talking about 9 races here. What
9 or 10, huh? Doesn't have to be 9.
one additional race? How much does that bring to
We
the?
have the figures. Jerome, is that?
No.
It's about one million?
One race is about 1 million.
1 million.
1.5.
About 1.5 million. Depending if there's no white people or full hard.
The beauty of it, of course, is that our costs remain the same.
Yeah, the thing is, we taken a lot of initiatives to manage our costs, tender processes, a lot. I won't bore you with that, but I think in your article, we are doing a lot. We saw it coming, we've already been proactive. But we didn't think after the Supreme Court judgment it will happen again, and it didn't. So hence the reason why I had to inform my members.
Talking about diversification, salary costing, etc., as it is happening in other countries, in all these countries, they have got very supportive governments, I would say. But in Mauritius, contrary to these other countries which you mentioned previously, have a government who is trying to strangulate the horse racing industry. As you said in your previous conference, you are handcuffed. I think now you must be almost hanged. I think so. Okay. But with this present government, how things are going, the interventionism of the government in the almost every sphere of the horse racing, do you dream they would allow you to diversify some costs, anything in the
Well, let's put it this way. We have written to the panel.
Sorry, Mr. Ahmad, and 7 things I would like to add. If the press support to report whatever is being said, so that to educate, to inform these people, the decision makers. In my humble opinion, they know more better than me, you, what should be done. But they're trying to do just the contrary, to put back again, to decrease the influence, the role of the MTC, the horse racing industry at large. I think you're aware of this.
Yeah.
So this is my point. Do you think
No, I think
this mindset will allow you?
I think what has changed today, and this is why when Mike took over, what came in Thursday, one of the first things he said to me, let's do a EIA report, because we've always said 600 million, 650, 700 million. Now we know the real figure. I think when you play with these real figures and you try to kill it, especially in an environment in which we're living today in Mauritius, where we have debt everywhere, it's not to be reckoned with. I think this will jolt a little bit their worry, and maybe, and I hope, I'm an optimist, I hope, and we've engaged at all levels, top, down, center, to make them understand this. Like I said to you, it's not my decision to kill off costs, but all I have to do is report back to you the impact of that to go away. And I will respect the decision because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But if you look at some of the legal changes proposed in the budget, there I don't accept. If they're challenging my own, I will challenge because it's my own constitutional right that they want to tackle. Please see Yahya about that. He made a really good presentation. Unfortunately, he had to go for family reasons. These are more worrying, and it's okay for you guys in the press to just write, but we take all the risk. You know, a GRA officer cannot come to my house without a search warrant and search my house. It's in the law. He's saying yes. That is not right. It's very dangerous. Huh? It's very dangerous. So these are the things that we worry about. And Tukajadar raised it. He said, I don't think Dirandeli would have written something like that. But it's there. So somebody wrote it. Right? Somebody wrote it. State law office must have read everything written, but it's there. So these are more worrying things. I'm not too worried about the business. I think over time they will understand. They will understand, oh, as you said, change the venue. It's a different debate. I'm not getting into that now. Tonight was just to let you know what we discussed in there, why we held
to
the
diversify, yes.
I think that the point here is we can't diversify. Unless we get authorization and the necessary license, we can't diversify. And this is the point of this slide that's up there right now, to say that actually we only have control over 30% of our income.
Can you come partner to that too?
Yes.
Yes, commingling is what it's about.
Yes.
That is a commingling project. They all come into the same company. And we even invite the government to come in, SIC. We even invite Mr. Mission to come in. SMS Boyard. Oh, I don't care. If it's to save the racing industry, you can't tell me that in Hong Kong they're all clean. They also have these kind of people. So, but they all come together under one roof to make it work, and you have to.
Are you thinking of changing our economic model? Maybe the economic
Well,
model
look,
is not.
This off-course thing was a blessing. Because I think the members were a bit shocked about the worldwide model changes. And it was also a blessing for us because it forced us already, I can tell you already since the beginning of the season, we've been worried about the off-course because we've been hearing news. It was already in the directives anyway. And we've been acting upon it. But it's, like Mike said, it's 30%, that's all I can play with. That's all I can play with. You want me to increase that to 32%? What would it change? What would it change? 33%? What would it change? I need to go up to about 60%. That's a worry we face. And I'm not trying to threaten or to say we're putting our hands down. Far from it. I think the turf club has faced similar potential situations in the past, and they came out of it. And as I say, I think we're all very optimistic on the board that with hard work and honesty, we will get there.
Come on, don't you think you just mentioned that you're not threatening the government or anyone, but don't you think by accepting everything like this, yes, it's you are creating an awareness on the figures. But as far as I remember, in 1998, I think, when the government come with a winning tax on races, you had all the stakeholders get together, and the government backpedaled on that.
Because 1999 was an election year?
No,
I'm not sure. No, I'm
was,
just saying.
it was January was Mr. Finance.
Okay.
He put a betting tax and a winning tax.
Mm-hmm.
And then you remember there was strike here.
Strike there, yeah.
Every stakeholder, then we had a meeting at the Rangjigo, and they backpedaled on that.
So,
Don't you think by accepting everything for the last
but we're not accepting.
years,
We're challenging
how?
full law. And Mike said to me, he's never seen a country where everything is legal. Every single thing.
No, we all know what is going on. Everyone of us here know what is going on.
But you won't get it out
what
of
they
my
are doing.
mouth.
We are something for
You won't get it out of my mouth for me to write about it. We all know it's my opinion, I keep it to myself. Striking right now is not in our philosophy. I think it's wrong.
No, I'm not saying that we should do
Because
that.
if we strike, that's one day of income gone. And we can't afford one day gone. We cannot. The only, like I said, our fundamental belief, and we said it to there were some stable managers, is not to touch state money or the benefits they get from the club. 101 million and 58 million in subsidy. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. One day of strike is $1 million profit gone. I agree with you. Maybe we'll come to that, but I'm not
You
there.
can get more, sir.
Right now, well, I don't know. If you're telling me to go and strike, write it in your press magazine. Don't say come out. Don't say I said that.
Like, no one wants to understand there. So.
Yeah, it may come to that. We have our EGM, we have AGM, and it's not up to this board to decide, it's the members. If the stables want to go and strike, well, the good thing is that they formed the association now. They have the Owners Association, the Trainers Association, and the Turf Club. So what I invited them to do is exactly that. Please lobby with your contacts. There's 200,000 people, 250,000 people that watch every day the race, every Saturday the race is on TV.
Anyway, satisfied with the presence
Oh.
of the members.
I think it was useful. I mean, our job was to inform, and it went across.
Only 50 people coming.
There was more than 50. There was 65.
65.
But okay. Yeah, but there's no
Short
election.
notice.
There's no election. It's short notice.
Exactly.
But
It was short notice, otherwise on Monday for Wednesday.
okay, so usually if you have, are you going to say that the turnout was really bad? Go ahead, then the government would love you even more. You can say that, but it's 65, and we expected 65. We expect much more because we know that it was very short notice, and a lot of them said we can't come. We had about what, 60, 40 apologies. I had about 30 apologies, and they want to know about it, what happened. So we will write up and give it to members. Usually members get excited when there's elections. When there's nothing like that, they won't get excited.
Anyway, to ensure that everybody is aware, we
Sorry?
follow up with a newsletter.
Let me pick you up on this proxy. This really bugs me. I'm a shareholder of Lux or Rollers or whatever I am. I get in the mail a proxy form. The proxy form will say, you're voting on approval of profits, you're voting on this acquisition, you're voting on this, and you're voting to reconduct Mr. Espigal Noel as chairman. There's about 5 items on this proxy. This is why we do proxies, not just because we're going to vote Kamal Tapusia or we're not going to vote Mr. Acha.
Peut-être limite.
Huh?
Limite.
Yes, we will at the EGM limit the proxies. We will. But every organization has a proxy. It's not just about reconduction of the director and everything else. This gentleman there, Steve, whatever his name was, raised this issue, but he misled. Maybe he doesn't have any shares, he's buying all the good horses. So, every proxy gives you proxy. It means I cannot come to your assembly, I give it to him, or I give my wife to him, so maybe 3 is the right number, and they go and vote on my behalf. And I don't think that's been explained properly. People have proxy in their election. No. How many items on the agenda we had at the AGM? Last year, about 5. 4 or 5 things. People who can come. We're giving their mandate to somebody to vote on my behalf. It's not just about the elections. Sorry, I get
No,
wrong.
that's what I say. Peut-être limite.
Huh?
5.
It is 5 right now. It is 5 right now. But for the EGM, now get this, the statute for the EGM is 20. 20.
The AGM.
EGM. If we need to dispose of an asset or change something, it's 20. Which is right, because look at tonight. Now do a math calculation. You said 50, that's round number. 50 members. How many members do we have that are voting? About
450.
450.
1 to 10.
1 to 10.
650.
If we were voting, the ones that couldn't come would be 1 to 10. I'll rest my case. You get my point? That would be a fair representation, 1 to 10. He's a mathematician or engineer. 1 to 10. And yet it's 5 right now, and people complain. They make it into this sort of disguise. So yes, it was, I'm not saying it was used before in a bad way, but last year there were 2 elections, so it was fine. And we're trying to curtail that. We have more worrying things to worry about proxies for the next year. This is worrying. Honestly, when people write in their newspaper, I saw one early on that I'm already thinking of the next year's election. You think it's in next March I'm worrying about that? At first I worry about my birthday coming up, my daughter getting married. This and more than the election. Yeah. Honestly. Please.
And Mr. Mike, what do you propose to tackle down this problem?
Well, there's 2 things. I think, firstly, in the longer term, the medium longer term, we've just got to continue to lobby government and the GRA to assist us to do those things that I spoke about. We must just never give up. We've just got to keep trying. And yes, we've had lots of disappointments to date, but that's not going to stop us continuing to try. And don't for 1 minute think that we're not doing anything about the budget.
Sorry?
The budget things that came out in the budget. Don't for 1 minute think that we've just
on the legal side.
yeah, then there are 2 issues here. So the one is the revenue side of the business, and as this slide says here, we've only really got control over 30% of the revenue of this business. There are a number of initiatives that we're busy with at the moment. Kamal alluded to an international initiative that we're busy with. Most probably the very biggest thing that we can do, as Kamal said, was that the 9th race is the thing that can save us in the real short term. But and if I go to the next slide, I can show you some of the things that we do. We have written to the Prime Minister. Okay. Very cordial, just to say, tell him about the 1.7% contribution to the GDP, and to ask him if he understands the implication of this on the racing industry. We have got a number of international initiatives, well, one in particular, a big one. We need more races desperately, and that's where you guys can help. We can't see any reason whatsoever why they're just not giving us approval for that 9th race.
And it's not a split race, huh? It's a full 9 race.
Yeah, and there's various things. You know, I had meetings with the bookmakers the other day, came up with some very good ideas. They were saying, why don't we give 35 minutes between races rather than 30 minutes? And that's
Good point.
And why? Because you've got 5 minutes longer to bet. Have you ever watched out here how many people don't get on? I'll tell you another silly little thing that we're doing right now. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, maybe we're pushing it, but we want to give each bookmaker in the back here double the amount of space. Have you seen all the queues there? And that will allow you another terminal, allow him to get everybody. It's little things. The race times. Bookmakers were saying, why don't we start at 1 o'clock in summer rather than 12:30? We'll consider that sort of thing. So there are a number of initiatives that we can do, but unfortunately most of them revolve around the 30% and not the 70%. In order to really make a success of it, we've got to get changes that allow us to make changes to the 70%. And so there are things that we are managing to do. And of course, as Kamal mentioned, something we have got to do, and we are doing, is we've got to manage our expenses. Now that's it. And as Kamal mentioned, that orange area over there, or 41% of the expenses of the Mauritius Turf Club is stakes, that 101 million that Kamal spoke about, plus the subsidies to stables. So 41% of the expenses of the Mauritius Turf Club are those two things. Kamal mentioned we're trying our very, very best not to alter those, because that's the lifeblood of the industry. That's what keeps its heart pumping, is the stake money. There's another 13% up there that we've got no control over. I'll give you the biggest example that's in that amount. It's testing of horses. We pay 22 million rupees a year just on testing. Just on testing alone, 22 million. So that's in there. So we've only got 46% of the expenses of the Mauritius Turf Club to play with. The sad reality is the biggest portion of that 46%, of course, is salaries. And the sad reality is we're going to have to look at it very, very carefully. And this is something that we're going to have to monitor on a weekly basis. But we're going to have to look at that portion of expenses and hope and pray that we're never going to have to delve into this portion of the expenses. But if things happen and that force us to do that, we might have to. I'll give you just some examples. I'm going to give you 2 examples. The 2 worst races that we've had this year by a million miles in terms of turnover. One, the race that White River won, it was a 4-horse field. White River was odds on, was it 5?
5
horses.
5.
White River was odds on, and the turnover, from a turnover point of view, we might as well not have had the race. And this last week, cool it off.
One other one, there was Please to Pleasure or whatever it was. There was Play the Tune, White River, and then Cool It Hard.
And now Cool It Hard this last Friday. Now there's an example of, let's choose this one, that's most recent in our minds. I mean, there we paid just short of 700,000 in prize money. We had 4 horses running. One was odds on. Nobody even, no one bet on it. So what happens? We pay 700,000 in stakes, and we do no bid. We just about did the turnover. But again, there's that saying, that's racing. And you've got to have those top division races because that's where the top horses run. And they become the heroes. And
About you talk about the free races, but why don't we propose maybe start something like betting without a favorite?
well,
we don't own a bookmaker license without a code.
but funny enough, they mentioned that very thing to me because you know this year's, as you all know, there's 4 or 5 horses this year that are top class horses, and it's almost certain that every time they run, we're going to have small field and an odds-on favourite. It's going to happen every single time.
Because they're doing it in Bet365 everywhere.
Sure.
Yeah, but that's another thing. I mean, to help the industry, the government should close down 365, like it's been closed in South Africa and Singapore.
We are living in a digital world.
Sorry?
Can't find this.
Singapore has, so has South Africa.
Like our VPN, everything.
You don't, yeah, but it's easy.
Can a stable tomorrow have its own grooms and take them?
We are working on that plan. We are working on a plan to reduce the number of, what do you call it, occasional grooms. We push shifting the onus. The thing is about subsidy. 58 million subsidy. Grooms is one item on there. Now, if I was to start again the turf club, I'd say, you want to be a staple, bring your money on the table. I'm not subsidizing. You take care of cameras, you take care of your groom, you take care of your medicine. That should be the way forward. Unfortunately, we have to phase it out in time because they are part and parcel of the pain process we are facing.